Watching the first episode of Eye on KZN. Still with me in the studio to discuss the impact of BRICS on KwaZulu-Natal as the gateway province positioned to do business with other BRIC countries are Honorable Michael Mabuyakulu, MEC for Economic Development and Tourism, KZN. Andrew Layman is head of the Durban Chamber of Commerce, and Saxon Van Coller, CEO of Durban Tradeport, as well as Rajan Reddy, CEO of KZN Oils. Now, before the break, we spoke in general about how South Africa and, of course, KZN would benefit from South Africa's membership of the BRIC nations. I want us to address some of those things that will enable us to benefit out of this. Let me begin again with you, MEC. The infrastructure that's required. We spoke about the work that you're doing around the Durban Tradeport, but what other initiatives are you taking to ensure that it is easier for people to do business with the other BRIC nations? As we know, most of their goods and services come through Durban, of course, because we are linked to China, India, as well as Russia from that side.
Well, let me say that I think we are the major beneficiaries, KZN, of the 18, in fact 15 out of the 18 C projects will have an impact in KwaZulu-Natal. As we speak right now, we have got two ministers of transport and the Minister of Public Enterprise who are in the province. We are actually, as we speak, briefing business about the opportunities that will emanate out of CIP2 in particular, which is about the Digard Port as well as the Durban, Free State, and Gauteng corridor. And we're anticipating that in that corridor alone, we're talking about 100 billion investment that will actually likely to take place with regard to that. However, as we speak with regard to question of creating better efficiencies, particularly in our ports, we are projecting that in the Durban Harbour, for instance, we'll be moving from the current 2.7 million TEUs by 2040 to about 30 million TEUs. Now, it's a huge, gigantic growth. As we speak, Transnet is investing in the region of about 131 billion rands into the ports in the country.
Sure.
Now, for us, it is important, therefore, that we therefore are able to maximize out of this by creating better efficiencies and having better rolling stock, so that we are able to have a much more free movement of goods, and therefore we are actually seeing a huge investment and practical investment in that regard. Already last year, PRASA has now invested more than 900 million that have spent in the current financial year in KwaZulu-Natal. So I'm saying, therefore, we are seeing a government not only saying we are committed to open up our economy and actually reduce the input costs and to make our manufacturers and exporters to become competitive, but that we are taking a lead in actually showing confidence in that economy.
Absolutely. MEC, let me invite the other panelists here to give me a comment on the infrastructure as the role that it plays in trying to ensure that we've got a greater ease of access and movement of goods within the province. I want to begin with you, Rajan.
Yeah, it is frightening, you know. Yes, MEC, I think one needs to applaud Transnet for what they are doing. But I'm still, again, you know, on business side, we need to see this cascade, and there's more an inclusive approach from, you know, business and developing more businesses. You just don't want a fantastic highway or national road, you know, being resurfaced or expanded, and you're not part of it, and everything is flying past you, or you know, whatever way it is. So I'd like also the city to unlock a little bit more of their land to emerging businesses. There seems to be a huge bottleneck with that, and across the country we'd really like that to happen, and that will you know, we understand we need to make it market related, but in this case I'd like government to come to the party and facilitate this and maybe stretch it over a period of time. So I think those are the kind of things that we would like. You know, we are satisfied with a lot of the infrastructure. We must say in KZN, we've got one of the fantastic road infrastructure and things like that. So I think we are not unhappy with those things. But I think to stimulate and encourage business, we need more industrial parks. We'd like MEC to look at the old days when the KFC was around, the KwaZulu Finance Corporation was around, where we had factories and warehouses being built. Those were incubators for businesses, you know, to grow And a lot of those businesses came out from those programs. So I'd like a more direct approach, not, it being said, okay, we've done this and now what more do you want us to do? It's this whole cradle to grave kind of approach that we need from government. I think there's a lot more government can do, but we'd also like to assist government with companies like ourselves that have and entrepreneurs that our government has created. It's now that we come back to them and say, now these are the challenges we are encountering, not looking for opportunities anymore. We are satisfied. We've got reasonably good opportunities, but we're looking for greater expansion now.
Right.
You know, a lot of these emerging companies are doing billions of rands of turnover. So we're not ungrateful, don't get me wrong.
But you need more.
We need more.
We need more. Business will always need more. If I can come to you, Saxon.
Godfrey, I'd like to comment on that.
Please give him reassurance.
Absolutely. Through the Chamber and through the Business Forum that the MEC mentioned that has been stimulated through the BRICS conference, we as Dubai City and Dubai Trade Port is looking for partnerships like yourself, which is actually the local industry, local businesses. We form allegiances with South African Airways. We were custodians of bringing Emirates to the KZN airport, and we want to play that intermediary that actually takes our internal exports to African countries. We've got links with Harare, we've got links with Zimbabwe, with Zambia, I beg your pardon. We're looking at Angola and Sub-Saharan Africa through our linkages. So therefore, using your businesses and let's help you expand it into the rest of the continent. And that's what we would like to do for local businesses.
It sounds like we need to talk more because he may not have been aware of these initiatives. And maybe we need to institutionalize these things actually.
Absolutely.
In fact, what I would actually want to add, we, Andrew would know, because we have actually presented through the Economic Council, because we have got a structure in KZN which is unique more than any other province that I know of, where you bring in business, you bring in organized labor, you bring in communities. And through that, we have now been able to brief, I think on Monday we had that meeting, where we presented a comprehensive strategy around industrial hubs in KwaZulu-Natal. So we'll have hubs, industrial hubs, in each and every district. And we are very clear that each and every of those hubs will be positioned differently from one another. It will be based on both the comparative and comparative advantages that are found in that district. Now that was also announced by the Premier in the State of the Province address. So we have gone ahead already with regard to industrial hubs. What we have also even do now, we have actually applied to DTI for the special economic zone of Dubai the Dubai Trade Port, but also of the Richards Bay ITZ. Seated where I'm seated, in the Richards Bay ITZ, we have a project pipeline of about 3.5 billion worth of investment, just in the Richards Bay ITZ alone. Now, in the Dubai city, for the next 3 to 4 or 5 years, we will be spending about 5 billion rands, so that we can actually ensure that we make it available as a platform where you can have both government and the private sector being able to do business. Now, I'm therefore simply saying from the side of government, we really think that we're putting our ducks on a row.
And Rajan needs to be picking up and running and making sure that he gets advantage of those opportunities. Andrew, I haven't forgotten.
Yes, I wanted to comment on a word you used. You talked about trickle down earlier, and Rajan used cascade. I think it's a fundamental challenge in this country, and it's not a challenge for government alone.
It needs to be managed.
Exactly, because it takes too long. And if all these catalytic projects worth billions of rand, we need them. We won't have economic growth without them. But by the time they get underway and the SMMEs at the end of the chain begin to benefit from them, a whole lot of hopes are dashed in the meantime because of time. And I think we need to find a way to manage this chain, if you like, in such a way that it gets to the bottom, if you like, a great deal quicker.
It sounds to me like we need to find some economists who can get these economics and set up models for us so we get the trickle down quicker. Saxon, you wanted to add something quickly?
I wanted to add 2 things, please, if I may. The first thing was that through BRICS and the investment that Dubai Trade Cities are having with this action group of just over 2 billion rand in the next 2 years, we've created, just an estimate on the creation of jobs in a year, is over 5,000 jobs directly that we will be giving to our local communities and in our area of the La Mercy Airport. Second to that is, in those initiatives, we're taking local companies to service the actual infrastructure development for that.
Yeah.
So again, it illustrates not only that public and private partnerships can work, but we're really looking to reinvest back into our own economy to make sure that we support the SMEs, that we can fast track. Over the next 2 years, we've got that initial investment of 2 billion rand, and more will come from that.
Absolutely.
So that is a really exciting opportunity for all of us to get together and move forward in our area.
My only worry, Jeffrey, my only worry is that I'll be worried when we begin to talk about a trickle-down approach. Not that we are not respecting the late Margaret Thatcher and the late Ronald Reagan, but I'll be much more comfortable when we speak about a growth through distribution. So as you grow the economy, you redistribute, because there are many people who historically have been disadvantaged. So rather than a trickle-down, so when those who are rich actually eat, and therefore we hope one day it will fall to the poor. So I have a problem with that. However, the issue of the SMMEs,
I want to get my audience to ask.
The issue of the SMMEs is that in this project, we are very clear, for instance, that we are not going to stimulate growth in industrial hubs without stimulating ordinary activities in cooperatives and SMMEs. And therefore, we have actually crafted the space of where we are going to see those coming in. But to expect that we can grow the whole economy to respond to the level of unemployment solely using SMEs alone, it would be folly for us to take that approach.
For sure.
So we need a very balanced approach.
We need resources, we need skill. There's an African proverb, MEC, that says if the child does not cry behind the mother's back, the mother will never know that the child is in trouble. We need to take questions from our audience. Let's open the floor to our audience, and I've been told there are definitely many questions there. Let's try and keep those questions short as much as possible so we can get as many voices as we can.
I must commend the honesty and the frankness of the discussion. In particular, as a private entrepreneur, I think the real issues of support for your SME, I think it really needs some serious introspection, Minister. You did have, I think there's been a mention of your KFC, which used to be your financial, your development finance institution, which I understand now is Itala, and your other growth development finance institutions. But I think that probably it's the type of red tape which normally takes place if you want to access those type of development finance assistance. It actually makes it very, very difficult for a small entrepreneur to actually get funding. I think I've been through that, and I know a number of entrepreneurs who've been through that. It almost becomes impossible to get assistance from those type of financial institutions. And I think we do need some better coordination if we really have to ensure that your entrepreneurs, because we always talk about, job creation comes from your SME, I think we really need, other than the fact that we do have those mega projects taking place, to really put our focus on better coordination from government, but also from in conjunction with small businesses.
Thank you very much. I think I get your point. Red tape, MEC.
Well,
very quickly, because I want to go back to the
Let us accept that the point raised, the point we have recognized ourselves, that South Africa has to do more to ensure that we create a favorable environment for the SMMEs not only to exist but to grow. What we have decided to do, which was announced by the Premier during the State of the Province address, is that before the end of June this year, we will be establishing a new agency called the KZN Small Business Agency. That agency is not going to try and take over what Itala does, what all other institutions, financial institutions is doing. It's going to be focusing mainly around the issue of business support, the issues of mentorship, the issues of linking businesses, SMMEs, to financial institutions, and therefore holding hands and supporting them. In the same way that an agency of this magnitude was established in India in 1957. So that is the first thing. But the second thing that we decided to do as KZN is that before the end of this year, we would have produced what we call the SMME Master Plan. We will be actually emulating an example of what the Malaysians have done. They have gone on to say, what are the critical things that can make the SMMEs to thrive, and what are the targets, and what are the things that we need to prioritize? So work is now ongoing to try and put together a KwaZulu-Natal SMME Master Plan. And therefore, we think we would want to catapult our game at that level.
We are breaking news here. You want to add quickly before I go back to my audience?
Very, very quickly. MEC, I'm supporting you on this one. I think we all good and well and support governance. But there's something about transparency. you mustn't make it too transparent where you don't see things. So I think we must be very mindful of that. So we need to do things with speed. You will be criticized, but when you do something with a good, clear conscience, and we'll get things moving. Make it a business decision.
Thank you, Rajan. Let's take some more questions. We've got a hand up there. Yeah, go right ahead, sir.
My name is Stavros Nicola, and I'm from Aspen Pharmacare, which is headquartered in KZN. But I'm here probably in a capacity as a member of the BRICS Business Council, the MEC referred to. It's in that context that I wanted to respond to an issue. I think the purpose of the summit was really a consolidation to create a platform. And I think the intention was always a new, fresh approach in terms of how you link government back into business and how you unlock the value that exists within businesses in the 5 BRICS countries. For that reason, the council was established. It was launched on the last day, unfortunately. If it was on the first day, I'm sure we could have facilitated some deals. But nonetheless, it has been launched with that express purpose of promoting trade, facilitating trade and investment within the 5 BRICS countries, so intra-BRICS, but also external to BRICS as well.
Absolutely.
To that end, I can tell you we've met as a council with DTI as recently as Monday evening, and there's a very clear intention on our part to start linking South African business across all sectors, including SMEs, right up to the big corporates, industrials, all of the sectors. And what's likely to happen, and there will be more sort of announcements in due course, what's likely to happen is we're going to call a big session that has a plenary, and then from that plenary we'll break up into commissions so that we can try and understand strategically what different sectors want to do. In fact, each of the council members, just lastly, have been allocated a sector. So for example, mine is manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, Sandile Zungu's is mining and resources, there's an ICT, a financial services, and so on and so forth. So I think that we're quite optimistic that this type of bottom-up approach will start yielding the end results, because I agree, the results are you able to unlock deals through these establishments?
Absolutely. Stavros, you've got a lot of work to do. Thanks very much indeed for that update. We've got more questions.
I'm Trudy Makaya from the Competition Commission. I've got a very brief comment, and maybe this will spark some discussion. But earlier in the show, there was a lot of anxiety about competition, in this case, international competition. And I think part of the issue that we're hearing here is that it starts with local competition, with our companies being able to engage in robust competition and being able to then also take on international companies. So it shouldn't be about how do we protect our local companies, how do we kind of over-support them so that they can take on international companies. It's more, how do we make them more competitive? How do we actually make sure that they're used to the idea of very robust and vigorous competition? Yeah. And I think there's an issue of input costs that we hear every day in South Africa. And I think perhaps there's an issue where business perhaps needs to be more articulate about what they would like to see in terms of the reduction of input costs and engage more in terms of policy suggestions to government, because I think it's not something that could happen with government just crafting in abstract. There has to be, I think, a bigger voice in terms of technical, concrete suggestions.
Thanks very much, Trudy. I can tell you, Rajan, I didn't know there was a policeman in the room. You can quickly respond.
Yes, it's good. But I think, Godfrey, what you got to be honest about what has made India the force that it is today. It's the support, the direct support of government in their companies and the access to finance. You've got State Bank of India sitting here. And when you find out what the State Bank of India has done for their citizens. Now, these are the kind of things, and I'm trying to say to MEC, do not be scared. Do not be this thing when you come to support our companies. You're not, contradicting anything or anything of that sort. So please, when we went, and what happened to Russia?
what's happening to China, and which is a communistic country, was. But now you find it's all government's money that's making big business.
Absolutely, and the interesting aspect is that it's those economies that are growing where the state has a big role to play versus those where it's sort of hands-off, where growth is stagnating. MEC, do you want to come in quickly here? Well, I've got another question that I need to check. Let's take that question and then we can come in for closing comments.
I'm Peter Steyn from Worksmans and Lex Africa. There's been quite an interesting debate as to whether South Africa is the gateway to Africa. And if so, whether we're losing that gateway status. And I'd be interested on the panel's comments on that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me begin with you, MEC. But as we go through, I'm asking you for your final comments as well because we're running out of time.
Well, let me start by saying that first and foremost, thank you to Elijah. And I think in the debate, when you're doing well, people should say you are doing well. It is not about...
MEC, I guess the marks here.
But let me also say that I think the point raised by Thuli is an important point. We want to ensure that South African business are competitive. They can stand on their own in the global competition. We're a small and open economy. We're no longer a closed economy. And therefore, South Africa plays in the big league. And what would make us actually to grow is that we must therefore be able to deal with issues in the manner that our business are able therefore to become competitive in the manner that any other business anywhere in the world can become competitive. And that is a sense. But within that, we will have to protect and nurture certain sectors of the economy that we think are crucial for job creation, are crucial for dealing with the issues of inequality. But having said that, the issues around the input costs are also highly debatable and highly questionable. There are things we can do, for instance, in the areas of infrastructure, in the area of logistics, to ensure that we actually reduce the cost of doing business in South Africa.
Sure.
That's why I'm saying KwaZulu-Natal is an ideal place for people to start their businesses. Because why do you bring raw material outside and therefore truck it to Johannesburg when you can have it done, processed and exported throughout there quicker and easier? So we are offering South Africans an easy way where they can be able to reduce the input costs. But let me also say, we are a gateway. We are not claiming the status of a gateway.
Sure.
We say so primarily because when we go into the BRICS, we are not there for our own sake. We are there to open up opportunities for the region, for the continent. And for the first time, the retreat of the heads of state with the African heads of state was not only a symbolic gesture, but it was a departure from the past, where South Africa says, we are in this game to box for our interests, South Africans, but also to box for the African interests, because our growth is intertwined with the growth of the continent, with the growth of the region. So we believe quite very strongly that if we were to grow this region, and therefore be able to ensure that this region grows, it will allow us first and foremost to become the region where we do more business with it, rather than start doing business with people from outside.
MEC, thank you very much. Let me come to you, Saxon, because I want you to support what the MEC is saying before I come to the business people.
Sure. I think this whole debate is fundamentally for me is that we really need, as an internal South African community in business, look to see where our self-confidence can come from. And we need to believe that we have the skills, we have the infrastructure at our doorstep, and reach out to the gates that have been opened through the forums that we've been speaking about this morning. We are ideally poised to deal with international competition, but I think we really need to look at what our skill sets are and feel self-confident about that.
Absolutely. Let me come to you, Andrew.
I think that the issue of gateway is quite critical to us because de facto we are, as the MEC has suggested. I think it's been challenged, and we've got to recognize that if we don't become very active in protecting this status, we might lose it because there are other African economies that are very aggressive at the moment. So it's a challenge to us, and I think it's our choice as to whether we remain the de facto gateway or not. I also just want to make a final comment about BRICS generally, because there is quite a lot of skepticism. There's some pessimists about it, and there's fear about how we might be swallowed up. I think it's absolutely our own choice as to whether we want to be economically colonized or not. It's our own choice as to whether we want to make sure that we benefit from the skills transfer that can emanate from BRICS.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Andrew. Rajan, I set you to be last deliberately because I'm boxing with you.
Yes. Godfrey, we are losing our edge as the gateway to Southern Africa and Africa. We are frustrating our neighboring countries. They are either going to go east or they're either going to go west, and they've already started. So I would suggest the infrastructure that Transnet is putting in place, we need to be very mindful that that doesn't become a white elephant in the near future. So that is to answer the gentleman's question. But MEC, you've done an outstanding job so far. What we need is our own development bank to support our companies internally, so that we could have access to finance, and the growth will take place within. We don't have to rely too much on the outside. We will be exporting to them.
Rajan, thank you very much. But I'm sure that the Industrial Development Corporation as well as the Development Bank of Southern Africa would have something to say about that. But we've come to the end of the very first episode of Eye on KZN. Thank you to our panel and also to our studio audience. Until next time, I'm Godfrey Mutizwa. Goodbye.